Hi, everybody. Welcome to Matt Men, your source for all things professional wrestling. I'm Andrew Zarian, and I am not joined by Rich Stambolian. I'm joined by a friend of mine that we actually. It's amazing how wrestling kind of intertwines in everything in a weird way. I'm gonna do the proper intro for Glenn. I'm gonna introduce him like how I do Rich. I'm joined by Glenn, my personal Blue Chew, Rubenstein.
Love it. Love it. Thanks for having me, man.
I'm loving the Blue Chew backdrop, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. Glenn, for people who don't know Glenn, I know Glenn from something totally outside of wrestling. I know Glenn as being a phenomenal podcast advertising firm, essentially, right?
Yeah.
You're an ad firm.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So, yeah.
we met through that. You worked for I guess not really a competitor, but you could say a competitor. You worked for I don't know. Do you want to mention it or is that
Yeah.
cool?
So I worked,
Okay.
so I started in the podcast business working for Leo Laporte and the Twit Network, where I worked for 5 years. And then at the start of 2016, struck out on my own, started a podcast advertising agency, Adopter Media. And Andrew, I think you're one of the first people that I hit up to place ads with on all the great podcasts you do, both Matt Men, What the Tech, etc. And yeah, it's a small world, man. You know, somehow I started working for Leo, who I've known for 30 years almost. But originally I wanted to be a podcaster. You know, I wanted to do
Yeah.
podcasts. I'd done radio in the past with Leo, and actually did a failed video game show on the Twit Network. Ended up in marketing and advertising, stumbled into podcast ad sales. And then lo and behold, everything really came full circle when Sean Ross Sapp left Wrestling Inc. I was placing ads on the Wrestling Inc. podcast through my agency, started talking to Raj Giri about ads. We started chatting about wrestling one day, of which I'm a huge fan. He asked me to be a guest on their podcast, and a week later I was hosting it. So
I think that's wild.
yeah, kind of
That's
crazy.
yeah, and I just had Raj on and I had Sean on, and it was just like a random message. I'm like, hey, you want to be on? And Raj and I have spoken on and off for years. I've done the Wrestling Gang podcast, and we were just never able to kind of link together to do the show. And I had him on. He was one of my favorite guests. And same with Sean. He's a talented, brilliant guy. And now Glenn, you're the last piece of that Wrestling Gang puzzle, really, on the show. I have a lot of personal questions. Obviously, we're going to talk about everything with AEW and StarCast, and you guys had great representation there. Are you the man that has introduced Blue Chew to wrestling?
Yeah, so through my ad agency, Blue Chew is now our biggest client. And we do work with a lot of big clients. We do stuff with LaCroix Sparkling Water, with Pitney Bowes, with Kind Snacks, with about a dozen other companies. But Blue Chew in the past year has just been killing it in advertising on podcasts. And given my love of wrestling, we really got them into this space. And now it's a huge, huge portion of their audience and their fan base.
I think this is like a B-side, B track of pro wrestling, how you are the man that has introduced Blue Chew to the professional wrestling world. And I have to tell you, I know from people that I speak to regularly that are in the business that this is it's a topic of conversation amongst many of them.
Absolutely. I personally at StarCast thanked Cody Rhodes for dropping that joke on being the elite. I think that really helped put us on the map and put it over the top. But from what I understand, I mean, it's true. These guys put the Chew Fairy. It's a backstage thing. They put in each other's bags to give them a good match. It's become part of the business. I get texts now from wrestlers that are saying, hey, we got this thing going on. We're hooking up. Can Blue Chew hook us up for this bachelor party we're doing? You know, can you give us t-shirts, stuff like that? And I'm like, well, I can get you, some credits. They're like, oh, no, we already subscribed. We already used this.
By the way, the Chew Fairy showed up here.
Yeah, there you go.
I have mine here. The problem is when the Chew Fairy visits, other people come to visit also, and all of a sudden, all the Blue Chew's gone. So
yeah, everyone was
needs to visit everybody else.
We sponsored the after party at StarCast. Everybody was hitting me up for Blue Chew.
Since we're on the topic, I do want to remind everybody we're big fans of Blue Chew here on the show. Rich is a huge fan, for a lack of a better term, of Blue Chew. He says that it gives him. I'm going to clean up what he says, but he constantly says that it makes him feel like he's a superhero.
Oh, that's good.
That it heightens your spidey senses in a way. And here's a great thing. You can visit Blue Chew and you get your first shipment for free when you use the special promo code MATMEN at checkout. You just pay $5 for the shipping. And also, Glenn, these are, I was not going to do a Blue Chew ad today. I don't have them as an ad, as you know, because you sell them on my show. But I thought it's a perfect time to talk about it. It is a chewable version of two FDA-approved medications, correct? It's Cialis and Viagra.
Same active ingredients as Viagra and Cialis, yes.
Same active ingredients. And the way that this works, actually, this is amazing. I love the technology that we have come to in 2019 where you could actually go on your computer, go to a website, bluechew.com, and a doctor screens your report, looks at it, and prescribes you. You take a questionnaire. It's like 5 minutes, and you're good. You're done. Easy.
Yeah.
I'm all about this. And by the way, a lot of people don't feel comfortable going to a doctor and saying like, "Hey, listen,
it's so awkward.
I could use a little help. I could use a little, umph." And this isn't. And by the way, everybody could use a little help. This is a very enjoyable, little pill that you take, and within 20 minutes, you're ready to go. It's like you're 20 again. I turned 35. I'm running around the house like a wild 20-year-old. It was I had Rich's. Have you had, and this is a good question for you, have you had a female testimonial from their experience?
I have.
We did one on the show.
It's kind of nuts. I had people coming up to me at StarCast. I had couples stopping me and say, "We listened to the podcast," and I had the wife thanking me and saying, "Thank you for turning him on to Blue Chew." I've had people send me the most awkward DMs. Just like one guy sent me photographs. I'm like, I don't need to see. I'll take your word for it. I'll take your word that it works. But no, it's insane. And this is what I say is that Blue Chew isn't just for people with dysfunction. It's for any guy that wants extra function, that wants to go that extra step. And Matt Morgan, the Blueprint from TNA, from WWE, he has pointed this out before time and time again that guys talk a really good game, and finally your performance can sort of match that talk.
Match that game, yeah.
Yeah.
BlueChew.com. Use code MATTMAN at checkout. Your first shipment is absolutely free when you use the special promo code. You just pay $5 for the shipping. By the way, we were not doing a Blue Chew ad today. This is not why we're here. It's not even on my thing. I just thought I didn't know until this very moment that you were the person that kind of introduced Blue Chew. It just clicked in my head, strangely.
Yeah.
And it's funny how that happened. So I kind of want to talk to you about everything that's happening. You were at StarCast, right?
Yeah, I was there. I was at Double or Nothing.
You experienced this.
Show.
As a wrestling fan, right? And we've discussed wrestling on the phone a couple times, but we're in almost like the same little internet bubble of wrestling. But for you, how important do you think the show was? AEW. I mean, just the launch and the success of the show, the execution of the show for wrestling as a whole.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and it definitely was groundbreaking, right? Probably one of the most important wrestling events of all time, certainly of the last 20 years. And then I was thinking, yeah, but wasn't All In sort of that? And All In was the opening shot, but this under the AEW banner really gave something fans to rally behind, gave fans the sense that, okay, now we have organized competition. This isn't just about supporting the Elite, or New Japan, or Ring of Honor. This is about someone that's really going to bring it to WWE, provide them with their first competition since WCW folded. And there was just so much goodwill pouring out of MGM Grand Arena on Saturday night. I think people were very, very satisfied with the show by and large. But then when Moxley showed up, loudest pop I've ever heard in person in my life, louder than when Enzo and Cass debuted after WrestleMania, which I was there for, louder certainly than anything I heard at Evolution. And Evolution, man, talk about goodwill for WWE. That was just such a feel-good pay-per-view. People were very, very loud there. But when Moxley showed up, man, I mean, they just blew the roof off that place. Me included, loudest I've ever yelled.
I was very impressed at the fact that production-wise, right? It was a little rocky in the first in the opener in the pre-show, but that's fine. That's expected. But technically, we're talking the technical aspect of production and direction to put an event like this together, of almost a 4-hour event, right? And 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 5-hour event, a 5-hour pay-per-view to go off without a technical nightmare says a lot about how much effort and money they're putting into production. They're investing into this.
Yeah.
This is a
Yeah,
big
this is
thing.
for real, man. This is for real. And if you look at what they did production wise, I think it was everything you love about WWE production, except the shaky zooms, right?
Oh my God, yeah. They have a jib, so they've incorporated that Ring of Honor thing that they have that jib shot. WWE was using that when they launched SmackDown, when they did the relaunch
Yeah.
of SmackDown Live, and it went away. It's gone.
Yeah. It looked good, man. You know what I caught on the monitors there looked good. I haven't gone back and watched. I've heard the commentary definitely had some rocky bits to it, but I'm looking forward to rewatching it. You know, my wife watches wrestling with me, and we follow WWE, a little bit of NXT. But I was telling her, I was like, look, when this starts weekly fall television, you're going to love this. And later this week, probably after Takeover, we're going to go back and watch the Double or Nothing pay-per-view as it was broadcast together. So I'm very, very anxious to see how that all played on TV.
What was your favorite match?
It's a tough one, man. I thought Dustin versus Cody was great. I thought the Bucks had a really good match. I thought Jericho versus Omega was really, really good. I thought the Battle Royal was great. And let me tell you why, is that I don't follow a lot of indie wrestling. I just don't have the time or the bandwidth. You know, I've tried to watch New Japan, some Impact, sometimes either the production aesthetic or it's just too much to learn. But the way they presented these guys, you know, I described it online. It's like, this is like a Marvel or DC fan discovering Image Comics. I mean, this is like,
That's
oh my God.
very well said. No,
Yeah, there's this whole new world. There's this whole new world, all these new characters. So I don't know about you, but Matt Morgan and I in the Wrestling Inc. podcast have been going back. Like, we're geeking out over Orange Cassidy. Matt Morgan is saying he would come out of retirement. He would pay money out of his own pocket to wrestle Orange Cassidy. And I'm determined to make that happen. So if any Florida promoters want to do that, let's get the blue versus orange match going with Matt Morgan back in the ring. But no, look, I think MJF. I think MJF is an absolute superstar. I think he had a star-making turn at Double or Nothing. I thought Jimmy Havoc looked incredible. I thought Jungle Boy looked fantastic. And I want to see these guys on weekly TV, man. I want to see what they do with regular television. I thought the women's match was really, really, really good.
Which one?
The triple threat. And I thought the 6-woman tag was good as well. But you know, I'd like to see a little more depth there. And again, you know, I'm a guy that flew out to Long Island to go to Evolution in person. So I would like to see a little more of a balance of women representation in AEW.
So my evaluation, and we did a live stream, right? And we've done these live watch-alongs in the past. And, you know, it's interesting when you do the watch-along because you kind of get to meet the P1 viewer, the hardcore viewer that's seeking this. I think we're at like 16,000 views on that.
Wow.
We're reaching this which I was surprised because we didn't even get that for WrestleMania. I think we did like 10,000 for WrestleMania for the live view for that live stuff. I want to get your opinion of this. What my personal favorite was the Cody match because there was a big story behind it. They told a great story in the ring, and there was a great story about them. And you know, going from WWE, they wanted to have this match there, and they weren't able to do it. Now, I mean, the show was fine. I couldn't find anything. There wasn't a bad match on the show.
No,
so now you're talking about weekly TV, right? We're a couple months out. They're going on TNT. They're probably I know a lot of people think Tuesday, but that's an NBA day, so I can't see how they're going to go on a Tuesday and get preempted off the start of their brand. So if I'm going to pick something, I'm going to go Wednesdays. So now you're on Wednesdays 8 to 10. What confidence do you have as someone that analyzes this regularly that they could pull off 52 weeks of good TV? I think that the expectation is a lot to do that, and they're just going to have to now kind of figure out how do you tell a story every week and not disappoint.
You know, I do think Cody maybe set himself up for the fall a little bit when he gave that speech at the end and said, "I promise we will never let you down." It's like, oh, you know, as someone, you know, this, man, it's like, as a content creator, it's like your fans will hold you accountable when you make those sort of bold statements. So that was the one part that made me a little nervous going forward, because I think there is a time when they will have a misstep, you know, and we'll see how they react and recover from that. But that being said, I think the question is, how are they going to run creative, and how much are we going to see of ring storytelling go on weekly TV? Listen to that interview with Jon Moxley that just dropped with Chris Jericho. You talking about his
Phenomenal.
time as Dean Ambrose and how terrible it was and how Vince is running everything. I mean, it's everything the convention of wisdom says it is about what's wrong with WWE creative. The question is, what is AEW going to do differently? And again, to go back to the comparison of like Image Comics, seems to me like as of now, it's going to be a little more creator owned, meaning that the talent is going to be coming up with their own stuff, pitching their own stuff. And I'm hoping this is the case. I'm hoping it's kind of like how SNL is, where you've got performers pitching their own storylines, pitching their own segments each week. And Cody, and his team are going to sort of be the Lorne Michaels that decides the best stuff that makes it on the air.
I have to give a shout out to this this YouTube chat that we got going. Tim Anger with $20 right now, and Brandon Edwards with another 10. Thank you, guys. And by the way, we are going to do a Q&A at the end. I will do my best to answer these questions. If you are sticking around, you could ask questions, and Glenn, you could ask questions to Glenn and me, and we'll do our best to answer it. There is a lot that comes into play when you're writing television, and you're trying to appeal to, I guess, everybody, right? Right now, you have a tremendous amount of disgruntled WWE fans. You have 2 million. Let's give them on the high end, 2.5 million people that tune in weekly to watch Raw and SmackDown, a couple points here and there. How much of that are you tapping into, which is pretty much majority of your viewership? And then how many new viewers are you picking up that were gone, that were, from the WCW days and the Attitude Era? I've been talking about this for a while, and I brought this up to somebody. The CM Punk pipe bomb in 2011 kind of set the tone for all of this.
Yeah.
Where a lot of the former fans, people that, I can't begin to tell you. And actually, that kind of was the reason why I started doing the podcast, the Madman Show. I had kind of lost interest around 2007, 2008, 2009. It was getting harder for me to continue to watch it on a regular basis. I was consuming it much like how a lot of people consume it now, and that's on social media and on YouTube and on the wrestling sites like Wrestling Inc. And then I slowly started coming back, and the pipe bomb kind of brought me back to this very different level of fandom, right? To the point that I'm kind of working in the industry now with Capital Wrestling and things like that. It kind of propelled me into doing that. I think a lot of people that are now back into wrestling for NXT or even WWE or AEW, Ring of Honor, came from that pipe bomb.
It's possible. That was something that was on my radar. I wasn't even watching weekly wrestling at the time, but I heard everybody talk about it and made me want to tune in and see what happened with it. I thought the story was good. I think they failed to really capitalize on that. Obviously, Punk had his own frustrations, and that's why he left shortly thereafter. But yeah, I think you get a performer that has something hot, Vince stays out of their way or doesn't mess it up. And that's where we see the high points in WWE. But to your point, if they're just marketing to lapsed fans, there's twice the audience that's not watching WWE, that's interested in wrestling or has been interested in wrestling versus what actually tunes in each week with WWE. So I think it's a smart move for them to go after those people with AEW. And I think, who's really going to get hurt from this, which is unfortunate. It's not Raw or SmackDown. I think it's NXT. AEW is really stealing their thunder. I don't know about you. I'd forgotten there was a takeover coming up this Saturday.
I think a lot of people did
as well. Yeah,
a lot of
we
people
got Tyler Breeze versus Velveteen Dream, which I don't know about you. Tyler Breeze versus Velveteen Dream. That's a literal dream match for me to see those guys work together. That's the sort of thing that I'm so excited for. I'm going to be tuned in for it, and I feel like it's stepping on their moment a little bit, and what NXT is going to do at Takeover 25 this Saturday.
Yeah, so they have 5 matches. So you can't go wrong with that. It's always a great show. It's almost an impossible show to blow. You have Johnny Gargano and Adam Cole for the NXT Championship. I would put my money that Gargano loses the title.
You think so? See, I think Cole is on his way out.
Just to get the pop.
Maybe.
On his way out from where? The company or to WWE?
To going to the main roster, which I don't know how they're going to do that. At this point, don't call anyone else up. You just screwed up the last round of call-ups. EC3 is,
Gone.
look at Heavy Machinery. Look at the Viking experience.
It means nothing. Isn't that crazy how these guys, Ricochet and Aleister Black, right? How do they mean such a minimal level on their debut coming
Yeah,
in.
and Ricochet they clearly believe in, and they're giving Ricochet some stuff. But even that this program with Cesaro, these are great matches, no storyline.
Yeah, no, well, what's a storyline now? Who has a storyline?
Yeah,
What
no, I
is the
mean
storyline anymore?
Daniel Bryan maybe a little,
But
Kofi.
what's his storyline? Think
Yeah,
about it
it's
though.
actually who has the most the most fleshed out storyline right now in the WWE? Dolph Ziggler, and it's terrible.
And it's terrible, but I know.
Yeah,
Shayna Baszler and Io Shirai. This is probably going to be Shayna's best match ever.
yeah, maybe her
Danny
last one.
Burch, Oni Lorcan versus the Street Profits versus the Forgotten Sons versus Bobby Fish and Kyle O'Reilly. Now Bobby Fish got hurt on a house show last
Oh
week.
wow.
He got banged up a little bit. I don't know how this is going to go. And then you got Velveteen Dream and Tyler Breeze for the NXT North American Championship, and Matt Riddle and Roderick Strong. I mean, every match is great. You can't
Yeah,
look at this and say this is not a good card.
if Street Profits don't win the belts at this point, they're going to be like, I mean, the next Enzo and Cass of NXT, right? They're just never going to get those titles.
I've seen them live in person. I don't think they are ready.
After all this time, I mean, I saw
Yeah.
Angelo Dawkins wrestling Enzo Amore back in 2015, 2015 at NXT house show. I mean, Angelo's been there a long, long time.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold on them. I think they have right now. This is the interesting part, right? NXT was where you wanted to go.
Yeah.
Now a lot of these guys on the independents, Joey Janela was 1 foot into WWE before AEW.
Hmm.
He was there. I mean he broke his leg. He got hurt, and he was gone for a little bit. But if that hadn't happened, I'm almost confident he was signing with WWE.
Yeah.
So now everybody has a second option to sign.
Joey Ryan. That's the word that Joey Ryan's going to NXT player coach role.
Well, I don't. Yeah. Well, he turned down the AEW deal, right?
Yeah. Now, if I were Triple H and NXT, I would be flying out Orange Cassidy immediately because he is not signed with AEW. I think that gimmick is TV ready. And if I were them, I would try and lock down everyone they could from Saturday night that isn't under an AEW deal.
I think they're gonna try to lock up everybody, even if because a lot of these deals they're not confirmed with a lot of the entry level talent.
Yeah,
From what I know.
yeah. And who knows what those deals even look like, right? And I think that okay, so here's the danger, and I'm saying this like to be really, really sane because much like the rest of the internet wrestling community, I am in the early stages of a love affair with AEW and Double or Nothing. But let's put on our rational thinking thoughts for a second. How much of that is what's real and what we've seen, and a good portion of it is, but how much of that is what we're projecting and assuming based on all of our frustration with WWE? We don't know what AEW deals look like. Are they better than WWE deals? AEW sent out a bunch of takedown notices for animated GIFs. TDE and a lot of other GIF makers got hit after Double or Nothing. Now, the Young Bucks did step in personally and reverse that and say, you've got our permission to make AEW animated GIFs, spread that content, share that content. But AEW is owned by a billionaire. It does have Warner behind it on the TV side.
Well, Glenn, I'm going to have to stop you. I'm going to have to stop you there. I mean, according to certain somebody,
I know where you're going with this.
The WWE is funding this.
Yeah, it's all Vince. They got together.
Listen,
Vince
I'm going to
Tony.
tell you something. I have nothing against Vince Russo. A lot of people don't like him.
Yeah,
I don't know him. I don't know him. I find his interviews very entertaining. I think he was a guy that I think his legacy in the industry is foreseen as more of a negative than it should be, in my opinion, because of a couple things. I cannot believe, however, that the sheer amount of people that actually believe what he said, that AEW is funded by WWE. I mean, I don't have the exact quote, but essentially that's what it is.
Or they're in
cahoots.
cahoots.
Or they're in cahoots. I don't know how the WWE would even fathom the concept of let's further hurt our brand because right now they're in a decline as far as brand perception goes, product perception goes. Let's further this by working with the possible biggest I'm not saying they're a threat to WWE, but the possible biggest threat to our company since 1999.
See, I don't think that conspiracy is true, but I do think Triple H and Cody are getting a real kick out of this little rivalry that they've
Oh,
got
that
building.
100%. Yeah, that 100%. I don't think anybody's taking it personal. I think it's the fact that you have the ability to keep this hot between the brands, and you have this. They mentioned AEW and WWE TV, and
And
people
who
lost their
knows?
mind.
Who knows whether that was approved, not approved? Sammy wasn't on TV Tuesday, but I mean, there's a lot to speculate about. I mean, granted, when Dean Ambrose left, I thought that was a work, or I give two options: either that the way they gave Dean Ambrose his send off from WWE, either it was a work or he bamboozled them so hard that he was retiring and not going anywhere. That they gave him this incredible send off that they've never given any other talent before. And what's funny is you listen to the Moxley interview with Jericho where he's talking about it, and I think he bamboozled them a little bit, but he did bring up an interesting point, which is that Vince loves to feel like he's controlling the narrative in something. And I think that Vince probably lied to himself and bamboozled himself on what Dean's plans were based on what he told him.
Yeah, I 100% agree that he bamboozled the company and he shut his mouth and he didn't ask for a release and he didn't ask for all this stuff that a lot of other people like Luke Harper have done. That was the smart thing to do. What did you get from that Dean Ambrose interview? It was very reminiscent of the CM Punk interview, but less bitter.
Yeah.
It wasn't. I I believed everything Dean Ambrose said. I didn't necessarily believe everything CM Punk said in his interview, knowing what I know. I think there's a lot of truths, but the truth maybe was a little bit exaggerated on the CM Punk side.
Yeah, I mean it's tough, man. I know, I'm sure you've had jobs before and things like that where it's like if anyone ever wants to sit around and tell stories about their former employer, obviously it's like you're thankful for the experience, thankful for the opportunity, but there's going to be stuff that probably is your perspective, your experience versus what actually happened. And I think that with Punk, there was probably a lot more of that. Now, granted, Punk was talking about his individual experiences with specific people. I don't know that that's speaks to the larger company and the culture as a whole. But I think in the Dean Ambrose situation with Moxley, I mean, he's talking about Vince. He's really talking about Vince and
Yeah.
Vince's guys that are around him. And if you watch television, if you watch WWE TV, all those segments he was naming and talking about his issues with it, we as viewers certainly had issues with those segments. I didn't hear him bash a single thing that was good. And what was funny is he was talking about his face turn and saying with that, like he thought that worked a little bit better. They weren't on him as much and giving him stuff. They let him go with it. Even Jericho sort of rushed and defended Mitch the Plant and that whole
Yeah.
angle that happened. So I think that I feel like Moxley was pretty accurate, at least to an outsider's perspective, of explaining why this terrible content made it on the air.
I feel bad for him, and I feel bad for a lot
Yeah.
of people there, and I hear from people there, and I rarely discuss it on the show what I hear, but I hear the frustration, and I don't know if that so this is the evaluation you got to look at, right? Is this the same frustration that existed 20 years ago in the Attitude Era when things were great, or in the 2000s? I think so. I think now a lot of people have an avenue to complain and an avenue to kind of be
Maybe.
more vocal. It is more tyrannical in the sense that you have to follow the rules and you have to go down this line. The fact that you have multiple writing teams and one is in Stanford and one is on the road, and then Vince gets the final say, and then by the time he gets to TV, it's something totally different. That is a complaint that I've heard for years.
Yeah.
And that really explains why storylines aren't, there's no continuity between stories and matches and characters. Dean Ambrose is coming out there and doing his wacky stuff, and then you're supposed to take him as a very serious heel, and then he's really not. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, you depending on who has that script in their hand, that's the message you're getting.
Yeah.
Rather than it being an extension of the entertainer, of the
Well,
wrestler.
let me tell you two things. One, and I did tweet this, and if you go back and look at Wrestling Inc. when it first aired, did you watch the Dean Ambrose Chronicle on the WWE Network?
I did, yeah.
Now, I said at the time, if this is not kayfabe, and it did not feel like kayfabe, I was like, this is someone that needs therapy, that seems very, very depressed. They're in a dark place. And I actually felt just super bummed out watching it. And at the end of it was just kind of like, I needed to sit back and reflect on a lot of things, and I'm not making light of depression or
Yeah.
anyone's issues, but you could tell watching that Chronicle, this is a guy that does not enjoy what he's doing and does not enjoy the people that he's working with or working for. But secondly, to your point, I come back to this is where, again, I hope AEW changes it. I think Saturday Night Live should be the example of how you do a weekly TV show that has a lot of performers, that has a lot of characters. And that's that you have writers paired with talent, you have people pitching stuff, and it's a bit of a meritocracy that the best stuff makes it on the air each week. And the problem is you've got Vince. Could you imagine if Lorne Michaels got involved and wanted to write and rewrite every sketch
And he goes, that's good
before it
shit.
went on the air? Yeah. I mean, it's like, that's not the case. And I think you need a lighter hand at the helm to do that. And that's just not Vince McMahon.
I think a lot of the problem is, okay, well, who was the guy, right? It was always Vince. It was Vince, it was
Yeah.
Pat, it was Cornette, it was JR, it was Russo, and it was always small. Even Bruce, it was a very small, no matter who was good and who was bad, it was like less than 10 people.
Yeah.
And if Vince didn't have his finger on the pulse, somebody else did. Now, there's 20 some odd writers, there's agents, there's some producers, there's liaisons to Vince and Hunter. They have an input. Stephanie has an input. There's so many moving parts. And then, by the way, you forget about corporate. You talk about advertisers. You talk about the network. We heard that USA had some sort of leverage and play with this 24/7 title. It's so many people having input. Committees don't work, in my opinion. I'm not a fan of committees. So when you have essentially 30 people throwing their ideas in, and one person that has not had his finger on the pulse, that's a problem, right?
Yeah, and look at when SmackDown had its golden era, its resurgence after the brand split back 2016, 2017. It's like that was seen mostly as Ryan Ward and Road Dogg. Road Dogg just recently got reassigned to the company because he couldn't hang anymore. He couldn't deal with Vince rewriting his stuff and changing everything there. And it shows SmackDown, it's terrible to say this, but it's like SmackDown has had its ups and downs, but it's gotten worse. And you look at it and kind of say, okay, did it get worse when Vince got more involved in it? And then Road Dogg quits a little while later because he can't deal with it. Now he's still with the company. Supposedly he's going to NXT.
I know when Ryan Ward left SmackDown to go to the Raw side, that's when it kind of shifted.
Yeah. And for me, Talking Smack, the death of Talking Smack, but once every 3 months, I'll tweet something about Talking Smack, and like clockwork, it gets hundreds of retweets. Renee Young retweeted one once. Paige retweeted one. Everybody loved Talking Smack. I think that is one of the biggest mistakes the WWE has made in canceling that show.
Well, a lot of it has to do with the fact that you no longer have a reach into it. WWE is so manufactured, right? And I'm not, by the way, a couple things that people don't like. I don't dislike Brock Lesnar having that Money in the Bank. I don't hate it.
I like Brock for the first time since
I've
been watching wrestling again.
I don't dislike Brock at all. I think Brock is needed for them because he is actually the only legitimate, real mainstream crossover star that they have currently, which says a lot about the company. And I'm not, by the way,
and now he's
defending
dancing.
that I want to see Brock Lesnar Undertaker every match, but he's the only character that they have protected and booked perfectly for the character.
And now he's an actual character again.
And now he's dancing.
He's the Funkasaurus, the Brachiosaurus, It works, though. Like, I like him. When he came in at Money in the Bank and had that ass-eating grin at the end while holding the briefcase, it's like, oh my God, here's this guy that I've absolutely hated, thought was just ruining Monday Night Raw and the Universal Championship. And now he's got a little spark. He's got a little fire. He's not letting Heyman just go out there and cut the same promo again and again and again and again and again. So it's weird to me that now Brock Lesnar is one of the things I look forward to on Monday nights.
That says a lot.
Yeah.
But outside of Brock, who's their star? I mean, obviously we have. I'm not talking about who's their front runner, right? Like, I love Kofi, but
yeah,
he's not Austin. He's not Cena. He's not The Rock.
But
who's
don't you think that's because they're not letting these guys be that? I mean, they're not giving them the material or the story.
I'm not blaming the talent. I never do. But I don't think the talent, it's conditioning, right? It's almost like, I'll give an example. I had a job for 2 years, day job. My thought process changed because of that job, good and bad. I think that's what's happened to a lot of the talent. I don't think the talent, and to kind of defend WWE in a weird way, and this has been told to me by the talent, and I got a lot of crap for saying this. We talk about scripted promos, and I've been a defender of outlining a promo and letting the guys go out there and cut a promo. I said this as somebody that's pretty high up on the talent chain, and he looked at me, which kind of gives it away a little bit. He looked at me and said, and then what are they going to do? They're going to go out there and cut a promo? Do you think they know how to cut a promo like that? And I said, I would assume. He goes, these guys and girls have not cut a ad-libbed outline promo since they were on the indies, a lot of them. If you started off in the NXT developmental system, which a lot of them have, how are you going to go out there and cut an outline promo if you've never done that? If you don't know how to do it?
It's weird, man. I mean, so this kind of ties into my day job, right? So running an ad agency, you've seen the copy I send out to podcasters. I run into the same thing with podcasts. There are podcasters that know how to do an ad, like yourself, where you could take the bullet points, you could take the loose script I give you, and some weeks you're going to throw it out and do something better. Other weeks you're going to follow it a little bit. Maybe if you're having a bad week, you're going to follow it more closely. But the point is that I know when I'm writing ad copy, when my team's writing ad copy, we're trying to give somebody something that is collaborative. And the question is, with WWE Creative, is it a collaborative process, or based on what Dean said, it's Vince tells you this is what you're going to say and you're going to go out there and say?
You know what? You brought up an unbelievable example right there. That's actually a very good example that I'll go into. By the way, Michael Law, $5. Thank you, brother. So we're talking about copy for people who don't know. When we read a script, right? Like we did a Blue Chew ad right now.
Yeah.
I don't have a copy in front of me. I've kind of memorized a lot of the bullet points, but I shot it. It was a shoot. I went through my mind and I did the copy and I hit the bullet points. I have other ads on that I can't say a promo code if it says offer code.
Yeah.
If I do, I get in trouble. Or if I don't say terms and conditions apply at a certain promo code for a certain deal. These are things like I'm given a script. I have to read that script. And those are my worst ads because I lose interest when I have to sit there and read word for word a piece of paper, and the audience knows. But if I'm doing... If I have a 1 minute spot for an ad, or 2 minute spot, or 3 minute spot, and I'm able to kind of ad lib it, I could do 5 minutes talking about it, or 6 minutes.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the thing. And so I recognize this, that when I'm sending out copy to podcasters, it's that you want people to feel like they're your peers, like that you're working together, and this is a collaborative effort. If you don't have that, and you have your performers in a subservient role, that really changes things, and it changes their performance. And I think that you hear about this all the time. It's like guys that aren't afraid to stand up to Vince or, knock on his door or even walk into his office and sort of take control of the situation. Supposedly Vince likes that. It's funny. Go back and listen to the Dean Ambrose interview with Stone Cold, where Dean said that he had that kind of relationship, and then that complete turn of how it got towards the end, where Vince was like, no, you're going to go out there and say this. And they were compromising on things that they could, essentially it sounded like what Moxley hated the least, or was willing to go out there and do. But it's nuts. And then you think about it, and I'll say the flip side of this though, man, again, what balls if Sami Zayn really did ad-lib that AEW line on Monday? I don't
I
think
was
he
told
did.
100%. I was told 100% it was scripted, and
It had to have been.
somebody said, somebody wrote to me. They go, "Why would they do that? That makes no sense." I said, "Because everybody's talking about it, and that's exactly what they wanted
Everybody.
them to do. Everybody
It
was
was a high
talking
point
about
of the
it."
show, though. That's the sad
Yeah,
part.
that is the
You know,
sad
and
part. At
let me ask you
10:40,
this.
10:40 p.m.
Yeah, let me tell you, a year ago, if you would have told me Sami Zayn was going to be wrestling in the main event of Raw against the Universal Champion, oh my God, that would have been like something I look forward to like crazy.
And it
I
was a
think with
great
this character,
match.
it was a great match. I think this incarnation of his character is getting a little stale. I mean, I don't know how much you think about in terms of fantasy booking or fantasy storylines. I feel like they've got something that could be so hot with him. If they really want to draw from reality, why not give him the gimmick now of all these wrestlers like Luke Harper that are asking for their release, and have it where Sammy wants out of the company, you know, maybe even pulling a little bit
Yeah.
of that John Oliver truth and make
Yeah, yeah,
Sammy
yeah.
fight for that, make him fight for that. And when he wins, have him say, you know what? I've got other guys that feel the same way. I'm going to stay here. We're going to change this from the inside and have an anti-authority faction. And you know what? My hope is that maybe him name dropping AEW Monday is the start of that, and Sammy is going to get a storyline that's a little more like "screw you to the man," which I think the WWE does remarkably well, and that's where Vince is at his best when he's playing the corporate villain.
So I don't know if you guys were told this, but I brought it up on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I have not heard anything beyond this. I was told that there's a very big summer angle coming.
Oh, really?
Like a very big angle, and Vince is back into that whole summer angle because that was Vince's thing, that he would want to do like a big summer angle.
Yeah.
I've been told that uh there is a very big summer angle that they think will start a little bit of a perception turnaround in the company
Okay.
and lead into SummerSlam and then the fall at N Fox. And they have tremendous plans for this summer angle. I've been 3-4 different people within the know said this to me. I have no idea what it is. Maybe Sammy's part of this. I don't know what they could even plan. Uh, they have to break out of this box that they're in.
Yeah.
They really have to. And right now, you're looking at them, and it's. I feel like it's smothered. You know, everybody's kind of like smothered by you have to follow the line. And
Yeah.
now maybe they're going to break through that a little bit. Maybe they are going to change that.
I hope so. They got to take some big swings.
They
You
got to
know?
hit a home run. Back to
Yeah.
the Mets. The Mets. They're no longer the New York Yankees. They're performing like the Mets.
I mean, isn't it sad where the 24/7 title is the most creative thing that they've got going right now? And it's not even that good of a thing. But you know, that as an angle, you could tell there's some energy behind it. And I think again, part of the reason why it's the performers, the fact that Truth is doing all this content on social media, that he's getting behind it and going with it. But yeah, I think people just stop trying and stop caring. I mean, look at Dustin and that panel he did at Starcast on Sunday talking about being told he's not good enough. I mean, think about towards the end of Goldust's run. He did have some stuff organically that started to get some momentum, whether it was with Mandy Rose in the Mixed Match Challenge, doing that stuff with Truth. Like they gave him a couple little things that could have been something. I think they could have done a One Last Ride storyline with him in WWE that would have been very, very well received. But, you know, as he said, like Vince just didn't see him as worthy of being on the show anymore.
You know, you look at Goldust, right? Dustin's a great example. He was given a character that nobody else could have portrayed.
Yeah.
Right? He had such confidence in that role as Goldust, especially in the early mid-90s. You know, he was this androgynous guy with a very aggressive homosexual tone in this machismo era of wrestling where it was kind of looked down upon if you were a little bit less masculine than somebody else, and they played into that tremendously to the point that and by the way, he was a heel, right? And think about the stigma of the early 90s that kind of goes along with all of that as a total package. He was a heel that got over as a fan favorite because you appreciated how great he was at that role.
And that was the famous story, was that he's told Vince he was willing to even get breast implants,
Yeah.
if he thought that it would give the character more heat.
Yeah. By the way, he wasn't gay. He was androgynous.
Jeez. You know, let me put it this way. in hindsight, we look back on it and talk about how groundbreaking that was. And I think now he actually gets some credit, right? He actually gets some credit from people in the community of saying, oh, it was groundbreaking. But if you
Yeah.
go back and watch those, like, don't go back and watch those episodes. Anything good you think about how groundbreaking that
Oh,
was
no, it's
will
not. It's
immediately
really
be out the
bad.
window.
Do you
Yeah.
know that they were planning, and I think Bruce spoke about this on a couple of weeks ago on his podcast. Marlena was supposed to have a prosthetic penis
Oh, Jesus Christ. That
in
doesn't
on a
surprise me at all.
pay-per-view. It was during the Undertaker feud.
Yeah.
He was supposed to have she was supposed to have a prosthetic penis that outlined her gold dress, and they would like kind of like shoot it, but nobody would mention a thing. And they actually had the prosthetic penis ordered at the time.
I don't know where you stand on this, Andrew, but the Attitude Era is not as great as you remember it.
Oh,
Go
I've
back.
rewatched it all. I did
Yeah.
it 2 years ago. 3 years ago I did it. I rewatched every Raw. And
Oh,
I
wow.
follow, you know, I watch every Raw and every Nitro. And I'm
Yeah.
done. I'm done at this point. I passed Nitro. I think I hit like the 2004s and I stopped. And I follow along. Brian Alvarez does a great job with. He does a retro Raw 19 years ago, and it's Raw. And he covers Nitro and Raw. What's happening? It speaks volumes about how good the good was that
Yeah.
you have forgotten, you have erased the nonsense of what Raw was in the late 90s and even early 2000s. If
Mhm.
you watch Raw, any Raw from let's go 1998, okay? The height, it was
Yeah.
peaking. It was, or 99 even. Let's go 99 when it was good. You had every match was about 3.5 minutes long. They ran the ropes the entirety of the match. Everything was a rope spot. So it was a rope, big backdrop over, rope into a DDT, rope into a clothesline, Irish whip, and then you would get like 2 seconds to do a finish, and you were done. It was a smog finish every time. But the main events, the Austins, the Rocks, the Triple H's, the Undertakers, the Mick Foleys, these were one of a once in a decade type of guys
Oh,
in
yeah.
the same era. That's what made it. Everything else was,
Absolutely.
I mean, can you imagine the higher power angle? What a disappointment that would be today. It
I
was
think a
a
lot of it.
disappointment then.
Well, you know what's funny is so watch like the Monday Night Wars documentary on the network, and all these clips
Beautiful
look.
revisionist history.
Yeah, but then you go back and they'll show those clips from DX's first night there, and you're just like, okay, this must have been incredible. I'm gonna go back and watch the entire episode, and then you watch the promo that Brett was cutting on them. They're talking about Triple H. We know what one of the H's stands for. All this shade he's throwing at Sean, and it's just like, oh, this is not good. This is
And
not
by the way,
good at all.
so he's delivering that. And what does
Yeah.
Hunter do? And Hunter and Sean no sell the shit out of it.
Yeah.
And it means zero once it's delivered. So now you did this edgy promo,
Yeah.
right? What does one of the H's mean? He calls him his butt buddy or something.
Oh yeah, no, it's really bad. It's funny that Brett was out there doing this.
And it's Brett doing it.
Yeah, it's really bad. It's really bad. But that speaks to the WWE. Like why? And this is where I think you think about it with the state of the business right now. Watch a pay-per-view, watch the video package before pay-per-view, and it seems like, oh my God, these feuds have the hottest build. But when you're watching it week in and week out, it's grueling. So that's why they're losing viewers, man. You can just watch the pay-per-views right now, see the highlights on social media, and the package before each match at the pay-per-view is going to catch you up on the rest. There's no reason to tune into Raw or SmackDown each week.
Well, this kind of leads into something, and you would have a good understanding of this because you're also on the marketing side of things. The fact that essentially, when we watched it in the Attitude Era in the 2000s, social media did not exist. Right, you had forums. Right, you had forums on wrestling sites. You had BBS forums, but outside of the forums and like the wrestling inks, you didn't really have the ability to engage with somebody on a real basis. You also didn't have the ability to for the moment just put out a 140 character tweet. That didn't exist. So even though the forums were bad, and the criticism on the forums, all this toxic fandom existed, a lot of the people that watched it just watched it and went to school or to work, and they spoke to their coworkers about it, and that was the opinions that they conceived. It was based on a very small gauge. Now, And I always describe this, and the higher power is one of those things that I always talk about. The Attitude Era is praised for so many things, right? Can you imagine, the Kurt Angle moment where he takes the milk and he sprays Vince and Austin and them, and then Austin did it with the beer. Those would be scrutinized now under a microscope of everybody on Twitter talking about how silly this is. They're ruining Steve Austin. They've ruined Kurt Angle. The higher power, it should have been Ted DiBiase. It should have been Cyrus. It should have been whoever. These opinions that people now gain from social media impacted, right? In my opinion.
Oh my
They
God. Well,
also,
look, yeah.
also, it's not just WWE tweeting. It's me. It's you. It's Wrestling Inc. It's every other person that's covering it. Do you think that plays a big part as to why the ratings are where they are?
Well, I mean, I think the fans have more power than they've ever had before. I mean, I was one of the people that was really vocal about the Moolah Battle Royal at WrestleMania and contacting Snickers to voice their discontent about that. I mean, we saw some change in that area there. They've done other stuff the fans have freaked out about. The WWE has clearly responded to it sometimes. I think, in a way, that data is really the only thing that Vince McMahon and the creative team pays attention to. I don't know if you're on the WWE Fan Council. I get these surveys sent to me 2 or 3 times a week asking me what I thought of Raw or SmackDown. And I don't feel like anything ever changes based on that. I think they look at Twitter, they see, put their thumb in the air, see which way the wind's blowing, and they make probably some limited calls based on that. But it's a very weird time, man. I mean, look what happened with Ring of Honor and bringing in Enzo and Cass and how Twitter essentially reversed that decision, right? Based on the reaction it got.
Yeah.
Kind of nuts.
I kind of was for Enzo and Cass going to Ring of Honor.
I was too. I think if they can behave behind the scenes and not have the problems that they had in WWE. And again, this is going on the assumption that Enzo is free and clear of what he was charged with, given that there was no investigation, or pardon me, accused of, because he was never charged. And provided that was a incident that there's no other history and no one else has come out of the woodwork to support those allegations, I think that they're ripe for a redemption angle. And I think that Ring of Honor, I think that could have been huge for them, especially given with what's going on with AEW right now. But the thing is, their core demographic really, 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 really does not see Enzo and Cass as aligning with Ring of Honor, which is unfortunate because I don't think AEW is going to sign them. I mean, maybe Impact. But I think they could be a great redemption story, and I could absolutely see WWE bringing them back. In fact, I've predicted this time and time again. If not for the Survivor Series incident, I think they already would be back on WWE TV, given how low the ratings have gotten and that they need a shot in the arm like that.
I think they. I was at that show. Were you in New York for WrestleMania or no?
I was not. No.
Okay, I was at that show. I thought that Ring of Honor show was the coup de grace to that company. That was it.
Wow.
I don't think they'll reach that height ever again.
Wow.
I think it's going to be a very difficult process. I love the show, but I can't imagine Ring of Honor doing another MSG sellout without the talent that people expected would be there. People thought when they initially, it sold out in minutes. And by the way, I bought the ticket last minute on StubHub. I got tremendous seats, and I think I paid like $75 a piece.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, in fairness, AEW, there were last minute double or nothing deals. I actually had to get a ticket. So Blue Chew, we were sponsoring. I ended up giving some of the Blue Chew tickets. I actually gave all the Blue Chew tickets to contest winners. So I ended up getting my own ramp side seat, and you bought it at the last minute. Yeah, I think part of the problem though, Andrew, I mean, you know this, dude, it's especially in the New York area. It's like, it's the bots, the scalpers buy all this inventory. Yeah. And then what happens is people buy the hype that it's a legit sellout. And so they lose interest, and then it depresses the secondary market prices. So yeah, last minute, you can absolutely get a deal. And I recommend that for All Out in Chicago.
Which I will probably be. Are you going to be there for that?
I'm going to be there. I'm going to be there.
You know what we should do? Are you doing something with Blue Chew? Is it going to be a Blue Chew thing?
I'm sure Blue Chew is going to be sponsoring StarCast again. We did have one element of StarCast that maybe got postponed. I can't really talk about that right now, but I think that someone can, do the math and think that Chicago StarCast 3 seems like a pretty good time.
I would love to do something with you guys.
Yeah,
because I'm
yeah, we'll see.
I'm I'm going to Chicago. I love to do something that we were asked to do Starcast. I just Conrad, we had him on the show a couple of weeks ago, and but it was so last minute for me to put everything together. I just couldn't put my life together to go to Vegas, and then I'm going to Manchester next week. It would have been
Oh
too
wow.
much travel for me, so it would have been wild. Glenn, before we wrap it up,
Yeah.
I want to get your opinion on and I've been asking my guests this on the fly. Give me an element that WWE needs to imply to turn this around for them. As far as, listen, I don't think there is a fundamental problem, one problem. I think there's a variety of issues right now in that company. What do you think they would have to change or implement in order to kind of get this back to where it should be?
Put Hunter in control immediately and have Vince go focus on the XFL. But that's never going to happen,
Do you
unfortunately.
really feel that Vince is the issue?
Yeah, 100%. And I think what Moxley said backs up everything that we've heard. I mean, you hear from talent, I hear from talent. We all hear from people. Everything that Moxley said 100% lines up with my understanding of what their backstage creative process is like. Listen to the former writers. You know, they're out there, they're
Yeah.
vocal, they talk about it. I think NXT has, this is why people, I think this is what AEW is going to do well. If you just took NXT and did it on the scale of Raw or SmackDown, I think their numbers would be going up. I hope that's what AEW is going to do. And I think if you put Ryan Ward, Triple H, Road Dogg, those guys in control of the main WWE product, I think there's so much they could do with the 5 hours of primetime cable airtime that they have each week. I hope a change like that is in the works, but I don't know, man. Vince ain't going anywhere, and Vince's mom is still alive, right? So
I know.
he's
Yeah.
gonna, I wish him a long, healthy, happy life, but don't think that we're just holding on, and in a couple of years there's going to be a change. I think Vince is going to have to make the decision to let go of some of that power, and the only thing that's going to do that is the ratings dipping enough that TV grumbles. And I think it's almost going to take that, man. It's almost going to take Fox and USA doing sort of a hostile takeover of WWE creative at this point.
Yeah. Well, they are. I envision a very rude awakening for them when they go to Fox, because right now the idea is, well, it's a network. We're gonna
Yeah.
go 30% higher in ratings off the bat. It's a network, but networks don't have the pull that they did because now people consume media in all different types of ways. You know,
Yeah.
everybody has cable. Everybody has access to this, and I'm not saying everybody, by the way. I'm saying it's a lot more than when the perception of being on a network meant you're drawing 10 million people to watch your product. It's a very
Yeah.
different world that we're in. You're not just competing with what's on TV. You're competing with YouTube. You're competing with podcasts. You're competing with time.
They're a great social media
Everything.
company. If that made them money, I would say that they're doing an A+ job.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. Glenn, where can people find you?
I am at Glenn Rubenstein on Twitter, and we appreciate a follow. I live tweet along with most WWE programming. Going to be live tweeting Takeover on Saturday, and the Wrestling Inc. podcast. We are going to be recapping that. We recap Raw and SmackDown each week, and looking forward to more AEW stuff. I'm hoping these looks like Fyter Fest and Fight for the Fallen are going to get streamed. Really looking forward to that, and looking forward to being able to talk about that.
It's going to be a fun summer of wrestling going on. Guys, you can follow us, Matt Men Podcast on Twitter. You can subscribe to us. We're everywhere podcasts are available, obviously. You could hit that subscribe button here on YouTube if you're watching this live. And also Patreon, patreon.com/Matt Men Podcast. Fund as little as $1. Gives you access to all these bonus stuff. And, of course, you get access to our Discord. And if you fund us, you get access to the private Patreon chat where I get drunk and I pretty much spill the beans on everything once a week. And I get in trouble. And then when other guys start covering it. So that happens. Glenn, I'd love to do this again. Also, guys, there is a good chance I am doing a live watch along again for NXT this Saturday. I'm loving the Saturday pay-per-view schedule the last couple of weeks. So
Nice.
Yes, makes life so much easier. I may do a watch along. Depends. I got to talk to Rich and see what his schedule is. Glenn, I'd love to do this again. We'll
Absolutely,
have to have
man.
you on again. And maybe we'll do one in person one of these days when we're in, the same town.
Sounds great, man.
Awesome. All right, guys, that's it for this week. We'll see you later.